freezing. Just gonna get cozy. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to the channel. My battery is half dead now because I've been fighting and trying to film this video. This is my 5th time. And if this footage ends up being corrupted again, I swear I'm going to throw myself off the balcony. Today we are talking obviously about the most disappointing books that I have read in 2021. And we got 6 books on here, 3 of which I do not have the physical copies. So of course we'll do the same thing that we've been doing for the rest of the other book content. And yeah, we're just gonna kind of jump right into it with a hard hitter here. Midnight Sun. I know that some people, this might be your favorite book, and Stephenie Meyer might be your favorite author of all time. I not grew up, but like in high school I read all of the Twilight books and I've seen all of the movies, and it's a really comforting series for me because it just is. However, it was disappointing to me because her writing didn't get any better. The characterization of Edward and like all the vampires in general, she kind of writes them as if they're supposed to be this terrible like antagonists despite everything. She also brings up the pomegranate seeds, which is a Greek mythology reference, but then there's no Greek mythology in it at all, so that's a little bit confusing. And yeah, the writing didn't improve. The characterization didn't improve. The plot holes were not fixed by the end of it. And it was really long. And it also was not different from Twilight at all whatsoever. So I feel like if you've read Twilight, you have read this book, or if you've seen Twilight, you have read this book. So I just think it didn't need to exist. And that's kind of where I'm at. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people stand. So yeah. The next book on this list, I hate with a passion, and not in a good way. Obviously it disappointed me. I bought this book on a whim because it was in like a $5 bin, and I was like, I love a good bargain, because I was looking for books that were underhyped, and unfortunately this book was not hyped at all, and I understand why. And that is Dirty Little Secrets. When I tell you, I sat down and I finished it in 24 hours just to say that I read it, to make sure that it was as bad throughout the entire thing as it started off as. And I took the physical copy and went to my roommate's room and was like, here, have this book, because I did not want it on my shelves. The writing is atrocious, the characters are atrocious, and there's no plot. And I feel like, for me personally, there has to be at least 2 of those 3 things. And there was none. The main character goes through so much trauma, and there's never an attempt to better herself or to get out of traumatic situations. And it does touch on abuse and like a bunch of other things which are sensitive topics, and it's not really dealt in a manner that I think these sensitive topics should be dealt in. And for that reason, it was an absolute no for me. I think I gave it a pity 2 stars on Goodreads, and realistically, like, I would have given it 0. And that's just kind of where I'm at. And it's unfortunate, but that it just wasn't for me. And according to Goodreads, it wasn't for a lot of people. So there is that. Book number 3 on this list, I actually gave like 4 stars. It is amazing, and I really enjoyed it. And the only reason that it came onto this list instead of like best books, which is I think where the other 2 books on this in this series that I've read so far are, is because compared to the other 2, it was a letdown. And so that is Deathmaker, and it is the 2nd book in the Dragon Blood series. So I have 5 more books in this series to finish. In saying that, the first book was like a solid 4.5, the last book that I read was a solid 5 stars, and this one was just a 4. And I just wish that I bonded and connected and was as attached to the other characters, or to these characters, as I was to the other characters. I felt like and I can't remember her name now, Sardell. I feel like I wanted to connect with the other characters as much as I connected to Ridge and Sardell in the first and the third books. And unfortunately, I feel like in a lot of trilogies and in a lot of bigger series, the second, third, fourth, fifth books end up suffering because they're literally just little bridges to introduce characters that are going to be important later on. And yeah, like the plot I just feel like kind of lacked, and I felt like I was supposed to be connected to these two characters, and I wasn't. And I also feel like this book could have been ended with a single bullet very early on, and it just wasn't. And for that reason, it was a little bit of a disappointment. So, but still a great book, still recommend, and I'll probably be rereading it when I continue on with the series. The next book is Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer, and this one was tough for me to get through. It talks a lot about mental health, and unfortunately the way that it approaches it is from a really religious point of view, where it's like, just pray your problems away. And I feel like for a lot of things, like, that might work for certain people, but for me, unfortunately, halfway through, I set it down, I didn't want to pick it back up, and I ended up having to rent the audiobook and just power through it that way because I didn't want to physically sit there and deal with it anymore. I did tab up some good things, and I will be going back probably in the new year to write notes on some of the nonfiction books that I read. I just felt like depression and anxiety should not be addressed in this manner, personally. So, for that reason, not my favorite. The other nonfiction self-helpy book that I did not personally enjoy was The 5 a.m. Club. The reason I picked this up was because I had people raving about it. I pestered my boyfriend into buying this book for me, and unfortunately, like, I think it was kind of a waste of, how much money was it? $21. This book is 314 pages long, and I feel like it could have been done in 14 pages. I feel like the romance in it did not need to be there. The fictionalization did not need to be there. It didn't need to be a story. It literally could have just been like reasons why waking up at 5 a.m. is helpful and beneficial and helps you succeed. Some steps to waking up at 5 a.m. Why waking up at 5 a.m. can make you healthier. Like, I feel like if it focused more on that and less on this fantasy world where, like, this multi-billionaire sweeps these two people who end up being soulmates under his wing and takes them across the world, and they fall in love and then they get married, and oh my god, they almost get shot at their wedding. Like, the dramatization behind it, I hated it. And yeah, it was one of those books like Battlefield of the Mind, like Twilight, or not Twilight, like Midnight Sun, and like Dirty Little Secrets, where unfortunately this is another book where I just kind of forced myself to finish it because I didn't want to DNF it. And yeah, I think it's far too long for what it's about and for the content in it. And the final book is another 3.54-ish stars, and that is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. It was the first book of his that I read, and I think that if you are going to read The Maidens and The Silent Patient, which they're like kind of duology books, like they happen in the same universe, they have the same characters that kind of cross paths, you should read it in that order, The Maidens and then The Silent Patient. And I know that he wrote this while in quarantine in England, which was a little bit more strict from my understanding than here in Canada. And so it was really nice just to see like how somebody could come up with this work of art in such a dark time. However, I wish we got more of The Maidens, and I also wish that the protagonist was a little more likable and a little less put your nose everywhere where it doesn't belong and trying to solve this mystery and like wrongfully accusing people. I don't know. And I wish that we got more of Edward Fosca and more of The Maidens and more of the Greek mythology that is in here. And the nail in the coffin for me. This would not be on this list if it weren't for the ending. If the ending was any different, I think that this could have easily been a 5-star read. However, the relationship that gets unveiled at the end, the twist, if you will, destroyed it for me. And yeah, it was good up until page 316. And then for the remaining 20 pages, it put an ick in my mouth that I still am not over. I don't know if I'll be rereading this because of that grossness, but it was a beautiful form of art. I just think that I hope in his next book maybe he touches on the ick that I felt at the end and does it justice and properly deals with it. But yeah, I feel like Silent Patient is just a better read because the twist at the end is not legal, but it's more palatable. So yeah. With that being said, all in all, if we continue on this trajectory, I had a really good, successful reading year. Realistically, like, having 4 books that are under 3 stars for me for an entire year is insane, and I loved it. Like, a lot of the books that I read I still loved. I just wish that some of them hadn't been written or had been written a little bit different, or yeah, like, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at any of these books. I'm just disappointed. So with that being said, let me know what your most disappointing read was of this year. I won't be doing a worst reads of this year because really all that would be on it is Dirty Little Secrets, and I could rip that book a new one. I could probably make like a 3-hour-long video about everything that's wrong with it. And I'm down to, if you guys just want to see me rant about awful writing for an hour straight. But yeah, let me know, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!